Give me the signal when you're ready. Apparently, we're timed. It's 9:30. Okay. So there's nothing on the screen. Oh, okay. So it's not this screen, it's that screen? Okay. Shabbat Shalom, good morning. My name is Rabbi Mark Bisman. I'm the Rabbi Emeritus of Congregation Or Tzion. I am filling in for Rabbi Green, who's away at the International BBYO Convention with members, with the youth of the congregation, and he asked me to stand in his place. And we have with us the rabbinic intern, Plea Julian, who's going to lead the services. We'll begin with the morning blessings on page 104. If you're able to do so, please rise for the morning blessings.
Excuse me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Wrong page. Asher natan l'sach v'vina lechavchin ben yom uvein layla. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani b'tzalmo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani bat chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokah haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa li kol tzorki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael bigvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten le'ayef koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hama'avir sheina me'einai utnuma me'afapai. Vayehi ratzon b'nei Adonai. Utnenu hayom uvechol yom lechen ulechesed ulrachamim be'einecha uve'einei kol re'enu v'tigmalenu v'chasadim tovim. Baruch atah Adonai gomel chasadim tovim le'amo Yisrael.
We turn now to, be seated, we turn now to the Psalm 30 on page 120. Page 120.
Mizmor shir Chanukata bayit leDavid aromim Adonai ki dilitani velo samachti oevai li Adonai Elohim. הפכת מספדי למחולי, פיתחת שקי ותעזרני שמחה, למען יזמרך כבוד לא יידום, אדוני אלוהי לעולם אודך.
We invite those observing Yortzeit or yet in mourning to join together in Mourner's Kaddish, found on page 121. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba.
Amen.
V'yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon u'vyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael b'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru. Amen.
Amen.
Yehei shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam u'olmei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudsha brechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran b'yalma v'imru.
Amen.
Yehi shlama rabba min shmaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru. Amen.
Amen.
We rise for Baruch She'amar, the introduction to the collection of Psalms, page 122.
Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam baruch hu. Baruch oseh bereshit. Baruch omer ve'oseh. Baruch gozer u'mekayem. Baruch merachem al ha'aretz. Baruch merachem al habriot. Baruch mishalem sachar tov lireav. Baruch chai la'ad v'kayam la'netzach. Baruch podei u'matzil. Baruch shemo. Baruch Adonai. Yachid chei haolamim melech meshubach umfoar adei ad shemo hagadol. Baruch ata Adonai melech mechulal b'tishbachot.
We remain standing as we turn to Psalm 136 on page 132. 132, the refrain, Ki li'olam chasto, for God's love endures forever.
Hodu l'Adonai ki tov ki le'olam chasto. Hodu le'Elohei ha'Elohim ki le'olam chasto. Hodu le'Adonai ha'Adonim ki le'olam chasto. Le'oseh niflaot gedolot levado ki le'olam chasto. Ay le'oseh hashamayim vitvuna ki le'olam chasto. Le'roka ha'aretz al hamayim ki le'olam chasto. Le'oseh urim ki le'olam chasto. Noten lechem lechol basar ki le'olam chasto. Hodu le'el hashamayim ki le'olam chasto.
May be seated. We turn to the Ashrei on page 136. 136, Psalm 145, as we begin the closing Psalms from the book of Psalms. Ashrei.
Ashrei yoshvei veitecha od hallelujah od hallelujah selah. Ashrei ha'am shekachalo. Ashrei ha'am she'Adonai Elohav tehillah leDavid. פותח את ידיך ומשביע לכל חי רצון, צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו וחסית בכל מעשיו. Tehilat Adonai Yidaber Pi Vivarech Kol Basar Shem Kodsho Leolam Va'ed Ve'anachnu Nevarech Ya Me'ata ve'ad olam. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
Page 141, the closing psalm from the book of Psalms, page 141.
Hallelujah, 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 El Bekodsho, hallelujah, Birkia Uzo. Hallelujah, big Vorotav. Hallelujah, Kerov, good law. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, beteka shofar. Hallelujah, benebel vechinor. Hallelujah, betofu macho. Hallelujah, bemining veugav. Hallelujah, betzil teleshama. Hallelujah, betzil tele trua, kol hanshama tehallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Uvaruch Shem kevodo leolam, vayimalech evodo et kol haaretz. Amen ve'amen ve'amen. Amen, amen.
We rise for the crossing of the sea, page 143, 143.
Vayar Yisrael et hayad hagadola asher asa Adonai b'Mitzrayim, v'yaruham et Adonai, vayaminu b'Adonai uv'Moshe avdo. Az yashir Moshe uvenei Yisrael et hashira hazot l'Adonai ve'omru lemor. Ashira l'Adonai ki gaoga, sus verochvo rama rama vayam, ozi vezimratia vayahili lishua, ze'eli ve'an vehu Elohai aviromemenhu. Adonai Yishem Adonai. Iladonai hamlucha umesho bagoyim, ve'alu mosheim behar Tzion lishpot et har Esav, ve'hayita l'Adonai hamlucha, ve'haya Adonai l'melech al kol ha'aretz, bayom hahu yeh Adonai, echad u'shmo echad.
May be seated. We turn to page 145, Nishmat Kol Chai, the soul of all that lives, praises your name.
Nishmat kol chai, tivarech et shimcha, Adonai Eloheinu. Nishmat kol chai, tivarech et shimcha, Adonai Eloheinu. Yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai dai. Veruach kol basar, tifa'er utitromem, zichrecha malkeinu tamir. Veruach kol basar, tifa'er utitromem, zichrecha malkeinu tamir. Yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai dai. We continue with Shochen Ad on 147. Shochen Ad marom v'kadosh shemo, v'chatu ranenu tzadikim baronai le'yesharim nava tehila.
147.
שכן חובת כל היוצרים לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואימותינו, להודות, להלל, לשבח, לפאר, לרומם, להדר, לברך, לעלה ולקלס את כל דברי שירות, ותשבחות דוד בן ישי עבדך משיחך.
Rise for Yishtabach, page 148.
ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל המלך הגדול והקדוש בשמיים ובארץ, כי לך נעים, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואימותינו. ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם, ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול בתשבחות, אל ההודאות אדוני נפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך אלכי העולמים.
Chatzi Kaddish at the bottom of 148 is followed by the Baruch Hu on 149.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברי חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן.
149. Baruch.
Page 149, Baruch Hu. Lai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, Barechu et Adonai hamevorach Baruch Adonai hamevorach hamevorach Olam hamevorach hamevorach leolam vaed.
May be seated, page 150.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer uvorei choshech osei shalom uvorei et hakol hakol yoducha v'hakol yishabchucha v'hakol yomeru ein kadosh kadonai hakol yeromememcha sela yotzer hakol Ha'el habotech b'chol yom dilatot sha'ar mizrach uvekayeh
As we reach the bottom of 150, we prepare for El Adon on 151.
Ein kerkecha be'ein zulatecha efes biltecha umido melach Ein kerkecha Adonai Eloheinu be'olam hazeh ve'ein zulatcha malkeinu lechaye olam haba efes biltecha go'alenu limot hamashiach ve'ein domei lecha moshienu litchiyat hametim El Adon al kol ha'ma'asim baruch umvorach befi kol neshama gadlo ve'tuvo malei olam datu v'tvuna b'sovivim oto hamitgae al chayot hakodesh v'nehedar b'chavod al hamerkava zechut umishor livnei chiso chesed v'rachamim livnei chevodo Tovim meorot shebara Eloheinu yitzaram b'da'at uvina uvehaskel koach ugvura natan bahem lihod udmoshlim bekerev tevel Mileim ziv fikim noga naeziva bechol haolam samechim betzeitam v'sasim bevoam bosim be'im abritzon konam pe'er bechavod notnim lishmot zohol averina lezecher malchuto kara l'shemesh Vayizrach ora'a vehitkin Torah levana Shevach notnim lo kol tzava marom tiferet ugdula srafim beofanim lechayot hakodesh yai dai 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 yai dai dai dai.
Top of page 152.
לאל אשר שבת מכל המעשים ביום השביעי התעלה וישב על כיסא כבודו. תתברך מושיענו על שבח מעשה ידיך ועל מאורי אור שעשית יפרחו חסלה.
Page 153, Tidbarach Surein.
כולם אהובים, כולם ברורים, כולם גיבורים וכולם עושים באימה ובירא רצון קונם וכולם פותחים את פיהם בקדושה ובטהרה, בשירה ובזמרה ומברכים ומשבחים, ומפארים ומעריצים ומקדישים וממליכים את שם וכולם מקבלים עליהם המלכות שמיים זה מזה, ונותנים רשות זה לזה, להקדיש ליוצרם בנחת רוח, בשפה ברורה ובנעימה קדושה, כולם כאחד ועונים ואומרים בהירה, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. באופנים וחיות הקודש ברעש גדול מתנסים לעומת צרפים, לעומתם משבחים ואומרים ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. לאל ברוך נעימו תיתנו, למלך אלוהי וקיים זמרות יאמרו.
Prepare for Or Chadash at the bottom of 153.
Or Chadash al Tzion Ta'ir, 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 ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו. Baruch atah Adonai yotzer hameorot.
154, Ahava Rabbah, as we prepare for the Shema on the following page, 154.
Ahava Rabbah avtanu Adonai Eloheinu Chemla gedola v'tera chamalta leinu Avinu malkeinu ba'avur avonteinu shebatchu v'cha ותרדם חוקי חיים, כן תכוננות למדנו, אבינו האב הרחמן, המרחם רחם עלינו, המרחם רחם עלינו. ותן בליבנו להבין ולהשכיל לשמוע, ללמוד וללמד, לשמור ולעשות, ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה, והרעננו בתורתך ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראת שמך, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו נגילה ונשמחה, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך, והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו, כי אל פועל ישועות אתה ובנו בחרת מכל עם ולשון, וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול סלע ואמת, לכודות לך וליחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha vehayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anohi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha veshinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha u'vlechtecha v'derech u'v'shochbecha u'v'kumecha u'kshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך.
We'll join together in the last paragraph on page 156, last paragraph of the Shema, Vayomer.
Vayomer Adonai al Moshe lemor, daber al bnei Yisrael, ve'amarta lehem, ve'asu latem tzitzit, al kanfei bigdehem lidorotam, ve'natnu al tzitzit hakanaf patil tachelet, Vayachem lachem litzitzit, uritem oto, uzchartem et kol mitzvot Adonai, ve'asitem otam, ve'lo taturu, acharei levavchem, acharei neichem, asher atem zonim achareichem, Leman tiskeru ve'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'hitem kedoshim le'olechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lechem le'olehim. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem emet. לדור ודור הוא קיים ושמו קיים, וכיסא נכון ומלכותו, ואמונתו לעד קיימת. Emet she'atahu Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu malkeinu melech avotenu ve'imotenu go'aleinu go'el avotenu ve'imotenu yotzreinu tzur yeshuatenu podenu u'matzilenu me'olam shemecha ein Elohim zulatecha Ezrat podenu ve'imotenu atuhu me'olam agenu moshe livneihem afreim b'chol dor v'dor.
As we prepare for Micha Mocha on page 158, we'll then turn to the Amidah on page 159. We're on page 158 toward the middle.
Tehilot le'elyon baruch u'mvorach Moshe u'Miriam u'vnei Yisrael lechanu shira b'simcha rabba ve'amru chulami chamocha ba'elim Adonai mi kamocha Nedar ba'kodesh nora tehilot osefele shira chadasha shibchu geulim leshimcha asefat hayam yachad kulam hodu vehimlichu ve'amru Adonai imloch le'olam Shabbat Yisrael, Uftechiinu Mecha, Yehuda ve'Yisrael, Go'aleinu, Adonai Tzvaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch atah Adonai Gal Yisrael. Yanananananana Adonai, Yananai Sfatai Tiftach, Yananananana Ufi Agid Tehilatecha, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot v'Imahot, Umevi Goel Libnei Bneihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Ufoked Umoshia Umagen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Abraham Ufoked Sarah, Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai, Mechaye Mitim atah Rab Lehoshia, Mashiv Haruach Umorid Hagashem, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye Mitim Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umidom Elach, Melech Memit Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'emanat Alehayot Meitim. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye HaMeitim. Nekadesh et shemcha ba'olam, kishem shemakdishim oto b'shmei marom, kakatuv al yad nevi'echa, v'karazel zeh ve'amar, kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Melochol haaretz kevodo. Az b'kol rash gadol adir v'chazak mashmi'im kol, umitnasim leumat rafim, leumat baruch yomeru, baruch kevod Adonai mimkomo. ממקומך מלכנו תופיע ותמלוך עלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון בקרוב בימינו, לעולם ועד תשכון, תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים, ועינינו תראינה מלכותך, כדבר ואמור בשירי עוזך, על ידי דוד משיחך צדקך, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. בשבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש, זה עולם ועד. כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
We both know how the service runs, but occasionally you have to work with each other in order to make it smooth. Okay, so now I'm learning that we're doing the psalm for the day before we get to the Torah service, which is a good plan, but I forgot to look at the list here. Okay, so now we're going to go to Kaddish Shalem on page 167 and then back for the psalm for Shabbat. 167, Kaddish Shalem. But we are coming back to the Torah service.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה,
אמן.
ויעמד דברי חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון ובימיכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בגלה בזמן קריב וימרו. אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם לעולמי עולמיה. יתברך, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי לקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה וימרו. אמן. תתקבל צלות הון ובעוד הון דכל ישראל קדמה והון דבי שמיה וימרו. אמן. יהי שמו רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל וימרו. אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל וימרו. Amen.
I think I gave you the wrong page. My apologies. Page 112, the psalm for Shabbat, 112.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות, עלי עשור ועלינה, ולעלי היגיון בכינור. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. עוד ינובו בשיבה, קדשנים ורעננים יהיו, לחגיד כי ישר אדוני, צורי ולא עוולת בו.
Those observing Yortzeit and yet in mourning, Mourner's Kaddish, page 121, 121. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba,
Amen.
v'yalma divrach yirutei, v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uvyomechon, uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru.
Amen.
Yehei shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam v'olmei
amaya.
Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudsha
Brechu.
le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'imru. Amen.
Amen.
Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom b'imromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru. Amen. Turn now to the service for taking out the Torah, which you'll find on page 168, Ein Kamocha, 168.
Ein kamocha va'elohim Adonai, ve'ein kema'asecha, malchutecha malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha bechol dor v'dor. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai imloch leolam va'ed. Adonai oz le'amo yitain. Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Av Elohim, Heitiva virtzoncha et Tzion, Tivne chomot Yerushalayim, Tivne chomot Yerushalayim. Ki lecha levad batachnu, melech el ram venisa adon olamim. Vayehi bin Zoharon vayomer Moshe kuma Adonai vayafutzu oivecha veyanusu mesanecha mipanecha ki mitzion tetzei Torah, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udevar Adonai mi Yerushalayim. Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael v'kdushato. Be'anarachet ve'lishma kadisha, kadisha yakira, ana emar tushbechan. Be'anarachet, be'anarachet ve'lishme kadisha, kadisha yakira, ana emar tushbechan. Yehera kodamach detiftach libi beoraita vetashli meshalin delibi veliba decholamcha Yisrael letavu lechayin velishlam. Amen.
Page 171.
One second.
Yeah.
Where are we? Sorry. It's right here. My first bar mitzvah. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael,
Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Gadlu Adonai iti, v'rashamo Shemo Yakdo.
Lecha Adonai hagedula v'hagevura הגבורה והתפארת והנצח וכחוד כי כל בשמיים ובארץ כי כל בשמיים ובארץ לך אדוני הממלכה והמתנשא לכל לראש רוממו רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להדם רגליו קדושו רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו.
As we prepare for the Torah reading, I want to call your attention to a few details. This morning's parsha is Ki Tisa. It begins in Exodus chapter 30 on page 523. We don't read the entire section, but this is where the parsha begins on verse 11 of chapter 30. The Jewish tradition finds many sources for the Yom Kippur Slichot liturgy in this week's parsha. Rashi cites a midrashic interpretation that places the instructions regarding the building of the tabernacle, the Mishkan, that are quoted earlier in chapter 25. According to that midrash, it occurs after the golden calf, which we read about this Shabbat. And they do it for a specific reason. They want to be able to say that the Mishkan is not the continuation of the moment at Sinai, but the solution to the challenge of what happens after the Israelites break the covenant with the building of the Elohei Masecha, this symbol of God that is not supposed to be. And so the Midrash claims, this particular Midrash that Rashi cites, is that the day on which this teaching about building the tabernacle occurred on Yom Kippur. Why Yom Kippur? Because the goal is to emphasize the forgiveness of the people, that somehow the Egel HaZahav was not the end of the story. It was what happened that we hope doesn't happen, but that even when there is, and when there are painful moments and catastrophes that we experience, we try to find a way to rebuild. And so for Rashi and the Midrash, the betrayal of the calf happened first, and then God teaches the people the proper way to worship and how to seek forgiveness. If we follow the sequence in the Torah, there's several times where Moses pleads for forgiveness. Here's the first one and contrasted with the second. The first one, Moses pleads with God for forgiveness, and his first plea begins on page 532, chapter 32, verse 11. I think that's not a section we're reading this morning. But in it, when God lets Moses know he's angry, he responds by saying, "Let not your anger blaze forth against your people, whom you delivered from the land of Egypt with great power and mighty hand. Let not the Egyptians say he delivered them with evil intent to kill them off, to wipe them from the face of the earth. Turn from your blazing anger and renounce your plan to punish your people. Remember your servants, Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, how you swore to them to give their offspring this land to possess forever." In this description It is Moses who persuades God to forgive. But that's not how the tradition sees it and interprets this Torah portion. Building off of the passage that's found on page 541, verse 6, chapter 34 of Exodus, verse 6, the rabbinic tradition teaches that it was God who taught Moses how to achieve forgiveness. And these are the verses. And I'm going to just recite some of them in Hebrew. I think you'll recognize them rather than needing the translation. The Lord came down in a cloud and stood with Moses there and proclaimed the shame, Lord, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. The Lord passed before him and proclaimed, Vaya'avor Adonai al panav vayikra, Adonai, Adonai el rachum v'chanun, erech hapayim v'rav chesed v'emet, notzer chesed la'alafim, nosei avon v'afesha v'chata'a v'nakeh. The rabbinic tradition cuts short verse 7, leaving off the complicated ending part that says, Lo yanakeh, poked avon avot, al banim v'al b'nei banim, al shalishim v'al ribeim. The truncated passage is referred to as Shlosh Esrei Midot, the 13 attributes of mercy. These 13 attributes of mercy become the foundation block for the parts of our Yom Kippur liturgy that seeks forgiveness. The Slichot prayer sections of the Yom Kippur liturgy claim that God taught Moses how to pray for forgiveness. In the Talmud, the tractate that deals with Rosh Hashanah, Rabbi Yochanan teaches that were it not for the source in the Torah that says, Vayavor Adonai al panav vayikra, that he passed by his face and declared, Rabbi Yochanan says it would be impossible to teach, I'efshar lelomdro melamed shanit at teif hakadosh baruch hu k'shliach tzibur. Rabbi Yochanan taught, were it not explicitly written in the verse, it would be impossible to say this. The verse teaches that the Holy One, blessed be he, wrapped himself in a prayer shawl, like a prayer leader, showed Moses the structure of the order of the prayer, and said to him, whenever the Jewish people sin, let them act before me in accordance with this order. Let the prayer leader wrap him or herself in a prayer shawl and publicly recite the 13 attributes of mercy, and I will forgive them. And all of the Slichot prayers recited on Yom Kippur quote this passage. Our Torah reading begins on page 538, Exodus chapter 33, verse 12, page 538.
V'yazor v'yagem v'yoshir l'chol hachosim bo v'namar amen. Hakol havu godel Eloheinu utenu kavod laTorah. Ya'amod. Yitzchak ben Reuven, ben Shmo, Harishon, Baruch shenatan Torah li'amo Yisrael b'kedushato, v'atem hadbekim b'Adonai Elohechem, chayim kulchem hayom. Start on chapter 33, verse 12, which is on 538.
Baruch Adonai HaMvarach.
Baruch Adonai HaMvarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torto. Baruch Atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayomer Moshe el Adonai, Re'eh ata omer elei ha'al et ha'am hazeh, v'ata lo hodatani, et asher tishlakimi v'ata amarta, yadaitika v'shem, v'kama tzataken v'enai, v'ata imna, Matzati hen be'einecha, odieni na eterechecha, be'edacha, lamayim sachem be'einecha, u're'eh, ki amcha hagoy hazeh, vayomer panai yeleku, vahinuchati lach, vayomer elav, imen panecha dokim, el ta'elenu mizeh, vamed yivarei etfo. כי מצאת חן בעיניך, אני ועמך הלא בלכתך עמנו, ונפלאנו אני ועמך מכל העם אשר על פני האדמה.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam natan baruchenu, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Ya'amod
Ben Tzion,
Ben Tzion,
Rabbi Tzvi,
Be'eliyahu
Eliyahu Tzvi,
Tzvi Halevi,
Devorah.
V'Devorah Aliyah Sheni.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Habarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe gam et hadavar hazeh asher dibarta et aseh ki matzata chen be'anai ve'edecha v'shem vayomer harayni na et kvodeka Vayomer ani avicha lo kol tavi al paneka v'karati v'shem Adonai lifaneka v'chanoti et asher achon v'rachamati et asher arachem Vayomer lo tuchol lirot et Panai ki lo yarani ha'adam v'chai. Vayomer Adonai hine makom et iti v'nitzat ta al atzur v'hayo ba'avor kevodi v'samtika b'nikrat atzur V'sakoti kapi aleka ad avrim V'hasiroti et kapi v'richamti et aharai Lufanai lo yera'u.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Ya Tamod Devorah Bat Baruch Verezel Aliyat Shlishi.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe v'solecha shnei luchot avanim karishonim v'chatabti al haluchot et hadavarim asher hayu al haluchot harishonim asher shibarta ve'enachon laboker v'yalita baboker el har Sinai v'nitzavta li sham al rosh hahar v'ish lo yala imach v'gam ish al yira b'chol hahar gam atzon v'habakar al yiru el mul hahar hahu v'yifsol shenei luchot avanim karishonim v'yashkem Moshe v'boker v'yal el har Sinai kasher tziv Adonai oto v'yikach biyado Shnei luchot avanim Vayered Adonai be'anan, vayityatzeh v'imo sham, vayikra v'shem Adonai, vayavor Adonai al panav vayikra, Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'chanun, Erech apayim, Rav chesed v'emet, Notzer chesed lalafim, Nosei avon, V'fesha v'chata'a, V'nakeh lo yinakeh, Pokei davon avot, Al banim v'al b'nei vanim, Al shleshim v'al ribeim, Vayimaher Moshe, Vayikot arza vayishtachu, Vayomer imna matzati chen b'necha, Adonai yelechna, Adonai b'kirbeinu, Ki am kisher orefhu, V'salachta lavonenu l'chatatenu, Unechaltanu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chaye olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Our next reading, the fourth, is Exodus 34, verse 10 on page 542. Yamdu
Meir Tzvi ben Avram Yitzchak
ve'ishto
Sasha bat Yehuda Tzvi v'Sora Pesha.
Sarah bat Yehuda
No, Sasha.
Sasha bat Yehuda Tzvi
V'Sora Pesha.
Besara Petza La'aliyat Revi'i.
Baruch Hu Adonai Havarach. Baruch Adonai Havarach Le'olam Voed.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu Le'olam Voed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayomer Hinei Anochi Korei Brit Neged Kol Amcha Eser Niflaot Asher Lo Nivru B'chol Haaretz B'chol HaGoyim Ra'ah Kol Ha'am Asher Ata B'kirbo Et Masei Adonai Ki Narahu Asher Ani Oseh Imach Shmor Lecha Et Asher Anochi Mitzavcha Hayom Hineni goresh mipanecha et hamori v'aknani v'hachiti v'hayeperizi v'hachivi v'hayevusi hishamer lecha pentichrod barit lioshev haaretz asher ata ba'aleha pen yihye lemokesh b'kirbecha ki et mizbechotam titotzun yet masevutam tishabeirun Yet asherav tichrotun, ki lo tishtachava le'el acher, ki Adonai kana shemo el kanahu, pentichrod barit liyoshev haaretz, v'zanu acharei Elohehem, v'zavchu le'Elohehem, v'kara lecha, yachalta mizivcha, V'lakachta mibnotav levanecha v'zanu b'notav acharei Elohehem v'hisnu et banecha acharei Elohehem Elohei masecha lo taselach.
Great. Okay. See. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. And we want to say a mazel tov to Marvin, who this week celebrated his 95th birthday. No?
It was 47 and a half twice.
I'm sorry. He did tell me that earlier. It's 47 and a half twice. Anyway, we want to wish you a mazel tov, many more years of happiness and blessings to you and health. And Rabbi?
I don't think I have the right one, but
This is our rabbi that married us.
Yes, almost 15 years ago.
whoa,
June will be 15 years.
not possible.
Yes.
How time flies. Page Gimel.
Yeah, you think so? Oh, I might actually find it. There's a special Mishaberach for, anyway, let's go with this Mishaberach for work. Mishaberach Avatina Abraham Yitzhak Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel V'Leah V'Yivarach et Hebrew name.
Mordecai.
No, Meir Tzvi.
Meir Tzvi ben
Then Avram Yitzchak.
Shalal Lichvara Makom V'Lichvara Torah V'Lichvara Shabbat V'Yishlach La all the goodness that there can be. I wound up on the one for the, you're not sick, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yishmalehu v'yatzilehu mikol tzara v'tzukah mikonega machala v'yishlach. Kol tuv v'nomar amen. Mazel tov. That's what happens when a rabbi's out of practice.
Rabbis are never out of practice.
Ya'amod.
Kalman ben Label Vazeldi.
Kalman ben Lehman Vizeldi, Aliyat Chamishi.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMorach.
Baruch Adonai Havarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher b'chaboru mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Amen. Et Chag HaMatzot tishmor, Shivat Yamim tochal matzot asher tziviticha l'moed Chodesh Ha'aviv, ki b'Chodesh Ha'aviv yatzata miMitzrayim. Ko Peter Rechem Li, V'hol Miknecha Tizachar, Peter Shor Vaseh, Upeter Hamor Tifte Vaseh, V'im Lo Tifte V'Arafto, Ko V'chor Banecha Tifte, V'lei Ra'u B'nei Rekam, Sheshet Yamim Ta'avod, Uvayom Hashvi'i Tishbod, Becharish Uvakatzir Tishbod.
Let's change it. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nada b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
I want to thank Cheryl Hammerman, Stan Hammerman, Stephanie Jacobson, Rabbi Bisman so far for Torah readings. Steve, are you doing the next one?
No, Rabbi Bisman
Rabbi's
is doing
gonna
the
do
next
this.
one, and
Okay.
I'm doing the last two.
All right. Yamod Hanan ben Gabriel
Chag Shavuot.
La'aliyat
What happened to that
Shishi.
nice passage? Where'd it go?
We are on the sixth Aliyah, chapter 34, verse 22, which you'll find on page 544.
Baruch Hu Adonai HaMorach.
Baruch Adonai Havarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher b'char banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. B'chag Shavuot taseh lecha bikurei katzir chitim. B'chag בחג האסיף, תקופת השנה, 3 פעמים בשנה, יראה כל זכורך את פני האדון, אדוני, אלוהי ישראל, כי יוריש גויים מפניך, והרחבתי את גבולך, ולא יחמוד איש את ארצך, בעלתך לראות את פני אדוני אלוהיך. 3 פעמים בשנה, לא תשחט על חמץ דם זבחי, ולא ילין לבוקר זבח חג הפסח, ראשית ביקורי אדמתך, תביא בית אדוני אלוהיך, לא תבשל גדי בחלב אמו.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah temet b'chayei olam natan b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. At this time, we offer prayer for those who are ill. I have a list, so I have to read the list, and anyone else who wants to add a name, and those who are at home. If you're thinking of someone, please, you can recite that name out loud as we stop. Mishaberach Avotenu Abraham Yitzhak v'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah Uyivarach Rapeh Tacholim Chana bat Chaya bat Bela Dora Mary Herzog Esther Shapiro Batya Rivka bat Sufia Natalie Klapik Pat Slotnick Stan Richkin, my apologies, John Granick, A.J. White, Gil Van Order, Linda Pressman, Esther Yegerman, Esther bat Batya V'Yakov, Aviva Chana bat Tova Tikva V'Chaim Melech, Marty Cohen, Elaine Fox, Miriam bat Ariella, Iris Granick, Pat Schenker, Leonard Schwartz, Leib Aharon ben Ida Vamosha, Victoria Pullman bat Pesha, Lael Lubin, Phyllis Weinstein, David Cohen, David Ben Leah, Rabbi Cheryl Peretz, Harav Tzivya Chana, bat Sarah Varachmiel Yosef, Judy Frieder, Yehudit bat Chana, Terry and Adam LaFrance, Daniel Katz, Liahu ben Shoshana, Mayor David ben Brindle, Betty Hirsch, Shalom ben Pessel, Chaim Michael ben Yitzchak Yocheved, Errol Rafal, Eliyahu David ben Yehudit Chana, Chaim ben Chana Label, Eileen Martin, Brian Perlman, Shira bat Chaya V'Moshe, Eileen Turgel, Chaya Chossel bat Devora, Anna Boardman, Harriet Scher, Chaya bat Rella, Raphael Chaim ben Sylvia, Francis Lipsman, Froma Elka bat Esther Rachel V'Arya Leib, Roberta Lipsman, Nicole Gurek, Sarah Vida bat Esther, Ariel Dworkas, Perla bat Chaelia V'Esther, Barak ben Bracha. And those at home, B'chol Misha Chola, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachamim Aleha, V'alchakzikam l'rapotam, v'yishlach lehem refuah shlema min hashamayim, refuat hanefesh, refuat haguf, b'toch shar Cholei Yisrael, Shabbat hilmi lizok ufak ravalavo, hashta bagalav izman kariv, v'nomar Amen. We ask God's blessing and healing and support for those who tend to the ill. And again, we'll say, Amen.
The seventh Aliyah, you'll find the reading on page 544, on the bottom of the page at verse 27, chapter 34. Talmud. Margalit bat Avraham Avinu v'Sarah la'aliyah Shvi'i.
Baruch et Adonai Barak Le'olam. Oh, excuse me. Baruch et Adonai HaBarak.
Baruch Adonai Barak Le'olam V'ed.
Baruch Adonai Barak Le'olam V'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher Barkar Banu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu Et Torto Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Amen. Vayomer Adonai al Moshe Ketav Lecha et Averim Ha'ela Ki al pi Averim Ha'ela Kirati etecha Barit Vet Yisrael Vayisham im Adonai Arbaim Yom Varbaim Laila Luchot lo achal Umayim lo shata Vayiktov al haluchot Et divrei habarit aseret hadavarim vayehi b'deret Moshe mahar Sinai u'shnei luchot ha'eda biyad Moshe barito min har u'Moshe lo yadai ki karan or panav b'divro ito Vayara Haron v'chol b'nei Yisrael et Moshe v'hinei karan or panav vayiru migeshet elav vayikra alehem Moshe vayishuvu elav Aharon v'chol hanisim ba'eda vayadaber Moshe elav V'acharekein nigishu kol b'nei Yisrael v'aitzem et kol asher diber Adonai ito b'har Sinai v'yachal Moshe midaber itam v'yitein al panav masfeh Uvavo Moshe lifnei Adonai lidaber ito Yisir et hamasfeh ad seito Vaytza vidaber el b'nei Yisrael Et asher yitzuveh V'ri'u b'nei Yisrael Et p'nei Moshe Ki karan or p'nei Moshe V'heshiv Moshe et hamasfeh al panai ad ba'ol lidaber ito.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hayei olam notat b'katenu Baruch atah Adonai noten HaTorah.
Amen. Yasher Koach.
Yeah. Ya'amod maftir.
No, what?
Huh?
Yishtabach, the Hatzikah.
Hatzikah. Sorry. Please stand for the Hatzikah. That's what happens when you get a substitute, you know.
Wait a minute.
I thought that's what you were asking.
Oh, no, sorry. Yitkada v'yitkada shemei Rabba.
Amen.
V'yama divra kirute v'yamlich malchute b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayerecha beit Yisrael bagala u'bizman kariv v'yimaru amen. Yehei shemei Rabba mevorach le'olam olomei amaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha v'irchu le'elam min chol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechema Damiram bi'alma v'yimaru amen. Ya'amod.
He's the, right here.
No, I'm the reader.
He's the reader.
He's maftir.
Moshe ben Nehemiah, maftir.
Baruch Adonai HaBorach.
Baruch Adonai Barach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaBorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayachal Moshe medaber itam, vayetein al panav masveh, uvivo Moshe lifnei Adonai ledaber ito, yisir et hamasveh ad seito, vayetza v'daber el b'nei Yisrael, et asher yitzuveh, V'ra'u b'nei Yisrael et b'nei Moshe ki karan or panai Moshe v'hashiv Moshe et hamasveh al panav ad ba'ol ledaber ito.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam notah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yamod Hagbat Yamdu Talmud Galila.
We rise as the Torah is lifted.
Okay, we'll put this away.
Ready? We good to go? V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei b'nei Yisroel al pi Adonai be'a Moshe.
You may be seated. You'll find the prophetic portion on page 548 with an introduction on 547. This is the dramatic scene made for movies where Elijah stands against the prophets of Baal and challenges them to prove that their God is listening, and whose God is listening is the challenge, I guess. And the ending is that the fire comes from heaven, although carefully Elijah has circled the area to be where the altar for God is surrounded by water, but it seems to be water that may be petroleum or something that could explode. Whatever it is, whether it was some kind of pyrotechnic thing or not, the issue here is that the Torah, the Bible, I should say, is ambivalent about Eliyahu. He disappears so often because he's being threatened with death, and he's very frustrated, as opposed to Moses, who deals with the frustrations when Israel is disobedient and he has to work on the relationship with God. Eliyahu gets frustrated when he can't. This is a powerful scene where the people understand the choice, but there are other situations that he gets very frustrated. Anyway, this is a dramatic scene. Enjoy it. Page 548. Imagine if you were the director of the movie.
First of all, we're going to start on page 549, verse 20.
Good choice. What verse, please? What verse?
20.
Okay, verse 20. Thank you.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bochar mivim tovim, v'ratzeh v'divrahem hanemorim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah u'Moshe avdo v'Yisrael amo v'ivemo emes v'tzedek. V'yishlach Achav b'chol b'nei Yisrael v'yikba'u es hanaviim el har ha'karmel v'yigesh Eliyahu el kol ha'am v'yomer ad motai atem poschim al shetei hamifihim im Adonai Elohim lechu acharav ve'im haba'al lechu acharev ule'anu ha'am oto davor vayomer Eliyahu al ha'el ani notarti Navi Ladonoi Levadihi Unavi Haba'al Arba Me'od HaChamish Ish Vidnu Lanu Shanaim Porim Yivharuhu Lahem Hapor Echod Anachtu Vashimu al Heitzihim Ve'esh lo Yeshimuhu Vani Yaseh Es Hafor Ha'echod V'natati al Heitzihim Ve'esh lo Hasihim V'koratom V'shem V'heichem V'ani ekra v'shem Adonai v'hayo Elohim asher aneh ba'esh hu Elohim v'an kol ha'am v'yomruhu tov hadavar v'yomer Eliyahu l'nevi'ei haba'al V'charu lachem ha'pohor ha'chod v'asu rishonoha ki ato harbihim v'kiru v'shem Elohechem v'esh lo tesimuhu v'hu es ha'par asher notan lachem Vayasu v'yikru v'shem haba'al mehaboker ad ha'tzaharayim le'mor haba'al anenu ve'ein kol ve'ein oneh v'faschuhu al ha'mitzbeach asher osah Vayehi b'tzaharayim v'hatel v'hem Eliyahu vayomer karu b'kol gadol ki Elohihu ki sheach u'ishisi loho v'ki derech loho olai yishem hu v'kods V'kru'u b'chol gadol v'izgeduhu v'mishpatav v'haravot uv'rav machim ahad shefach dam alehem v'hi kavod hatharayim v'nafa'uhu ad l'olam hamin choha v'ein koho v'ein oneh v'ein koshev Vayomer Eliyahu lecham b'shem Elahai v'neshu kol ha'am Elahav v'irpei es mitzbach Adonai heharuhu v'kach Eliyahu shetei asrei avanim kemi par shivtei v'nei Yaakov Asher haya davar Adonai elav le'mor Yisrael yeheshemecha vivneh es havanim mizbeach b'shem Adonai vayas tehalaha b'shem satayim zarah zahaviv l'mitzbeach Vayaruch es ha'etzihim, v'natahar es ha'par, vayasu el ha'etzihim, Vayomer mil'u arba'ah. Kadihim mayim vitzka'u al ha'oloham v'al ha'etzihim vayomer shenuhu vishnu vayomer shaleshu v'shaleshu v'lechu hamayim soviv l'mitzbeach v'gam es hatolah Milei mayim, vayhi balot hamincha, vayigash elihu hanavim, vayomar Adoshem Elohei Avraham Yitzchak v'Yisrael hayom vayavodah ki Ato Elohim Yisrael v'ani avdecha v'yivaracha asisi es kol hadavarim ho'eleh Aneni Adonai Aneni v'yiru ha'am hazeh ki ato Adonai Elohim v'ato chasiv Vohot es laba achoranihim Vetipol ish Adonai Vatochal es ha'olam V'haitzihim V'es ha'chavanim V'es ha'ofor V'es ha'mayim Asher b'ta'ala L'chei m'choha Vayar kol ha'aham v'yiflu al pnei ha'am vayomruhu Adonai hu Elohim Adonai hu Elohim Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sur kol olamim sadik b'chol hadoros Oel hanemon b'cheb b'oseh b'mecheb b'mechayim shechol d'vorav emes v'tzedek. Nemon atahu Adonai Eloheinu v'nemonim d'vorecha v'devar echad midvorecha echad lo yoshuv reikoham ki el-melech ne'emon v'rachamon ata baruch atah Adonai Oel hanemon b'chol d'vorav. Rachem al Tzion ki hem beit chayenu lavash nefesh toshia b'mheira v'yameinu baruch atah Adonai mishmefet mesameach Tzion b'vanecha shamcheinu Adonai Eloheinu b'eloha hanovi havdecha u'machot ben David meshichecha b'mheira yavo v'yagen libeinu al koso yeshev zar v'lo yachel od yachel es kavodaho Ki v'shem kodecha nishbata lo shelo yechu noro nolom voed baruch atah Adonai Magen David al haTorah v'al vodah v'al mi'im v'al yom haShabbat hazeh shenatato lanu Adonai Eloheinu l'kedushav l'necha l'kavod uv'tar eretz Al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach u'morachim otach yisbar shimcha b'ficha chai tamid l'olam vo'ed baruch atah Adonai mikadesh haShabbat.
We continue with the Ashrei on page 181.
Ashrei yoshvei beitecha, od yahalelu chasela. Ashrei ha'am shekacha lo, Ashrei ha'am she'Adonai Elohav. Tehillah leDavid, aromim פותח את ידיך ומשביע לכל חי רצון, צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו וחסיד בכל מעשיו. תהילת אדוני ידבר פיו, ויברך כל בשר שם קדשו לעולם ועד, ואנחנו נברך יה מעתה ועד עולם. Hallelujah.
We rise as we return the Sefer Torah to the Ark, page 183, 183.
Yeah, hallelujah, et Shem Adonai, ki niskav shemo levado, hodo al eretz v'shamayim, ve'yarem keren le'amo, tehila lechol chasidav, Livnei Yisrael am kerovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Mizmor leDavid, havul Adonai ben Elim, havul Adonai, kavod va'ozai. Havul Adonai, kevod shemo yishtachavu Adonai behadrat kodesh, kol Adonai al hamayim el hakavod hirim. Adonai mayim rabim, kol Adonai Bakoach. Ki lekach tov natati lachem torati al tazovu etz chaim hi lemachazikim ba v'tomchecha meushar deracheha darchei noam v'chol netivotecha shalom. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadesh yameinu kekedem.
You may be seated. So this is practice for when you're in some small community and there's no one else but you to lead. Because she's not even going to, not only is she leading the service, but now she's going to share some Torah with us, and she doesn't even get a breather. Do you need a chance to drink water or anything?
You know, I think I'm okay.
You okay?
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, I'm good. I drank some earlier, so we should be good. We'll see how I am by the end of this, though. All right. Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's so good to be here with all of you. Do you remember that time many years ago at this point, at the beginning of the pandemic, how alarming it was to see people walking around in masks all the time? It was so weird, at least to me, to meet someone for the first time and not know what they looked like. It was uncomfortable, and the specter of masks was a constant reminder that we needed to fear one another, that we needed to keep our distance in order to be safe. We've all adapted now, and masks are just part of the new normal, but still there's this sense that we are somehow hidden from each other. And whether or not you decide to take off your mask with someone to reveal your hiddenness denotes a certain level of intimacy. It means you are willing to take a risk in order to be fully face-to-face with another person. Faces, their presence and their absence, play a prominent role in this week's Parsha, Ki Tisa. They play such a prominent role that the word face, penei, shows up, and its derivatives show up 32 times throughout the entire Parsha, and I counted. Perhaps the most famous part of our Parsha this week is the incident with the golden calf. When Moses doesn't come down from Mount Sinai when he says he would, the Israelites start to panic. They wonder, does this mean our leader, and by extension our God, have abandoned us to die in the wilderness? In their fear and their desperation, they erect a golden calf to serve as their God, a God they can see and touch, whose physical presence will always be with them. They want their God to have a face. They tried the hidden God thing, and it was hard. And since they have apparently been abandoned by that God, they have the opportunity to create a God that represents their desires, mainly to know that their God actually exists. The ramifications of this impulse for their God to have a face and a physical countenance, however, are grave. Moses eventually does come down from the mountain, and in his anger smashes the two stone tablets that God gave to him. God, in God's anger, threatens to destroy the Israelites, thus forcing Moses to intercede on their behalf. Now, God and Moses are pretty tight. The Torah tells us Moses would speak with God panim el panim, face to face, ka'asher yidaber ish el re'ehu, as one person speaks to his fellow. The medieval commentators and the Targum Onkelos, the ancient Aramaic translation of and companion to the Torah text, tells us that this doesn't mean that God and Moses literally had face-to-face conversations, but rather that the expression expresses the level of intimacy they shared. One might think then that if Moses and God shared this level of intimacy, why would God hide anything from Moses? When Moses has to intercede on the Israelites' behalf, he makes an odd request for a man with such seemingly profound faith. Moses asks God if he can see God with his own eyes. Just like the Israelites, Moses wants to have a God with a face, with a countenance, because it's easier to know and therefore believe in a God with a face. He wants some kind of reassurance that the God he has devoted his life to is real. What's interesting, though, is that Moses doesn't explicitly ask to see God's panim, God's face. He asks, hareini na et kevodecha, to behold God's kavod. Most English language translations of the Torah translate kavod in this case as presence, which I like because it denotes something that is physical and at the same time intangible. Even though Moses doesn't outright ask to see God's face, God knows what he means. And in an incredibly moving expression of care and love, God says, I will make all my goodness pass before your face, and I will call out my true name, Yud-He Vav-He, and I will grant grace, and my compassion I will shower upon you. And God continues, but you cannot see my face, for a human being may not see me and live. Instead, God says, see, there's a place near me. Station yourself on the rock, and as my presence passes by, I will put you in a cleft of that rock and shield you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will take my hand away and you will see my back, but my face must not be seen. God essentially says, no, sorry, Moses, you can't see my face because it would be dangerous for you. But I can show you the very best parts of me. I can show you my goodness, my grace, and my compassion, because that's what you really need to know about me. That I love you, that I care for you, that I will protect you. And yet, still, in God's infinite understanding, God knows that Moses needs this physical reminder of God's ultimate reality. God knows that God's faithful servant needs this if he is to continue to lead God's people. And so, through a cleft in a rock, with the protection of God's hand, Moses gets his wish. He beholds not God's panim, but God's kavod, God's presence. We will never know what that looked like, but we do know, because the Torah tells us, that Moses' face was radiant for the rest of his days, and that he wore a mask in order to protect the people from his divine radiance. He must go into a form of hiding himself because he loves his people. But still, his presence is there. He may not be able to show his face, but he can still show the very best parts of himself: his goodness, his love, and his care. And ultimately, that's what the Israelites need. That's what anybody needs. This reminds me of an important lesson that I learned this past summer when I interned as a hospital chaplain. I wore a mask the whole summer, as we all did this past summer, and it was late enough in the pandemic that it didn't bother me but I was concerned that wearing a mask would make it more difficult to connect with patients and families. Because after all, there was this physical barrier keeping us from seeing each other's faces, and in a sense, keeping us from truly seeing one another. There could be no reassuring smiles, no grave looks of concern, or open-mouthed expressions of hope. However, I learned over the course of the next several months that this form of hiddenness didn't affect my ability to care for others or connect with others. I learned that it's not facial expressions or even words that matter in life's more difficult moments. It's presence that matters. It's presence that provides the most relief and comfort. Even though I couldn't show people my face, I could show them the very best parts of me: my goodness, my care, and my compassion. This lesson that I learned as a hospital chaplain, that even with a hidden face, we can still show the very best parts of ourselves, is the same lesson our Torah is teaching today. That as much as we would like to see each other in our fullness, sometimes we must remain hidden in order to protect each other. That even when our faces are hidden, we can still show the very best parts of ourselves. Masking, I know, is a controversial topic in the state of Arizona, and perhaps some of us disagree. Some of us here disagree on whether or not we should continue to mask at this point in the pandemic. Our personal opinions aside, though, we have all chosen to show up here this morning fully masked because that is what we decided as a community is best. Just like God and Moses decide to hide their faces in order to protect the ones they love, we have decided to do the same thing. We have chosen a holy act that is based in love, and as I hope I have shown today, is based in Torah. There will be a time when it is safe to take our masks off, to once again be with each other in our fullness. But that time has not yet come. As God shows us in today's Parsha, that even in our partial hiddenness, we can still show each other the very best parts of who we are. We're coming up on 2 full years of keeping ourselves partially hidden from one another, and I don't know about you, but I'm pretty tired of it. This Shabbat, though, I am recommitting myself to keeping my community safe, recommitting myself to masking in public because it is a holy act, a godly act. I am recommitting myself because I know that by covering my face, I am showing who I actually am, a person who loves her fellow humans. This Shabbat, I encourage you to join me in recommitting yourself to masking in public, because by doing so, you are showing the very best parts of yourself, your goodness, your care, and your compassion. Masks don't have to be a sign of fear or burden. They can be a symbol of love and care. And in fact, today's Parsha shows us that that's exactly what they are, a holy symbol of love and care. Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Our service resumes with the Chatzi Kaddish on page 184. Please rise.
Yitkada v'yitkada shemei Rabbi be'alma divrei chirutei v'amlich malchutei b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imeru amen Yehi shmei Rabbi mevorach Leolam leomei almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yidromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitala shmei dekudesha brichu le'ila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma V'yimeru, amen. And now I would like to invite up Josh and Michael Feinberg to help lead us in the Musaf Amidah.
Ata Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Rachel Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha-El HaGadol HaGibor V'Hanor El Elyon Gomel Hasadim Tovim V'Koneh HaKol V'Zocher Hastei Yavod Umi Gwelivnei V'Nehem Laman Shema V'Yachava Melech Ozer Usia Umagen Baruch Ata Adonai Magen Avraham Ufokei Sarah Ata Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechai Meitim Ata Rav Lechosia Masi Naim Mechalkel Naim Efesed Mechalei Meiti Berachamim Ramim Tomech Noflim Berachech Olim Umatir Asurim Umechayei Emunato Lishnei Me'afa Michama Haba Agevuro Umidomela Melech Nemi Umechayei Umatmiach Yeshua Neman Ata V'Chayod Meiti Baruch Ata Adonai Malchayei HaMeiti.
Naritzecha v'nakdishcha kesod Tzion. Ach sarfei kodesh hamakdishim shimcha bakodesh kakatuv al yad neviyecha v'kara zeh azeh ve'amar Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzeva'ot, Melech ol haaretz kevodo. Kevodo malei olam mishartav sholim zeh lazeh. Ayeh mekom kevodo leumatam baruch yomeru. Baruch kevodo Adonai mimkomo. Mimkomo hu yifen berachamim vayachon am Ham yachadim shemo erba boker v'chol yom tamid pa'amayim behava shema omrim Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Hu Eloheinu Hu Avinu Hu Malkeinu Hu Moshienu v'Hu Yashmienu berachamav shenit le'nei kol chai Lihiot lechem leolehim Ani Adonai Elohechem Ubdivrei kodshecha katuv lemor Nai leolam Elohayich Tzion Ledor vador Hallelujah Ledor vador Nagid godlecha Unetzach netzachim Kedushatcha nakdish B'shivcha Eloheinu mipinu Lo yamush leolam va'ed Ki el melech gadol V'kadosh atah Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh
Kaddish Shalem can be found on page 203.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעמדי ובחירותי והמליך מלכותי, בחייכון ובימיכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה ובזמן קריב וימרו.
Amen.
יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם לעולמי עלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעד למין כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה וימרו אמן תתקבל צלות הון ובעוד הון דכל ישראל קדם אבוהון דבישמיה וימרו אמן יהי שלום רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו בעל כל ישראל וימרו אמן עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה Shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru, Amen.
204.
Josh and Michael, would you like to come up? Oh, sweet. And Allison. Thank you. Okay, sounds good.
Full family press. That's good.
Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Mi Kemalkeinu, Mi Kadonenu, Mi Kemalkeinu, Mi Kemoshienu, No Deladonu, No Deladonenu, No Deladonenu, No Delamoshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shetiru, Avotenu, Lefanecha Ekatoret Asamim.
Rise for Aleinu, 205.
You're on the, you gotta turn the page.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol l'tei kedula leotzer b'reshit shelo asanu k'yeh haratzon velo salanu k'mishmechot adama shelo sam chalkenu chalhem v'gorolenu k'chol amona anachnu korim u'mishtachabinu madim lifnei melech malchei hamalchim HaKadosh Baruch Hu She'unas v'shamayim v'osa haaretz v'gevaru v'shamayim mina'ah v'shminatu zo v'shminatu zo V'gavre meromim U'Eloheinu einod Emet malkeinu echazulato Kakatu b'torato Daltaya v'elsosa Eslecha Ki Adonai Elohim B'shamayim mina'ah V'yoharetz v'yoharetz Mihacha Einod einod Emar v'chaya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz v'yom hahu ki yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad.
May be seated. Those observing yard site or yet in mourning can remain standing for Mourner's Kaddish on page 207. The yard sites on record are Carol Plonchik, A. David Silverman, Eugene Horowitz, Harry Burt, Leon Israel, Norman Chasen, Bess Lefstein, Sarah Schoenfeld, Elka Zimmerman, Harold Itko, Joan Markson, Lois Crichton, Rose Cohen, Samuel Carpin, Sherman Minkoff, Seymour Limmer, Ann Minetta, Arnold Krell, Berta Goodman. I don't have a list of all the recent deaths, but I want to extend condolences about Arnie Cohen, who passed away recently and was a dear friend. Page 207. Yitkadal, v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divra chirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uvyomechon, uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kari, v'imru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach leolam ulamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal Shemei dekudsha brechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechemata damiran b'yalma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu yaseh shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru. Amen. Not sure I know who. Oh, okay. Please, we have this morning's announcements.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I'm Allison Feiberg. On behalf of the Board of Directors, I give you these announcements. Thank you to Rabbi Bisman and Rabbinic intern Leah Julian for leading us in services this morning. Also, thanks to Josh Feinberg, dress rehearsal for Bar Mitzvah in 3 weeks. Thank you to our Torah and Haftorah readers, Stan Hammerman, Stephanie Jacobson, Cheryl Hammerman, Steve Schlosser, and Mel Glazer. Thank you to Nikki Spivak for your technical assistance. Thank you to our greeters, coordinator, and Gabbai this morning. Check the weekly e-bulletin and details for all of our upcoming events, including Mishloach Manot, which is open right now. The sales go through February 27th. Thank you so much to the 37 congregant families that have given to the entire congregation. You can contribute and participate at any level, so please do that. We also always need help with deliveries, so please see me, Kim Green, or Rachel Rabinovich for more information on how to help with this important fundraiser that's also very fun and spreads a lot of Purim joy. Please make sure to also check the Mitzvah Project section in your e-bulletin as it comes out on Thursdays. Our B'nai Mitzvah students are working hard. Because I have the microphone, my son Josh has his, he's working on food insecurity, so there's a bin out here for Kitchen on the Street through the end of the month. So please help us with that. You're also invited to meet our education director candidate, Andre Ivory, on Wednesday, February 23rd, when he presents a Jewish learning opportunity for adults at 5 p.m., followed by a Mincha Mariv service. Not on here, but I need to remember to add it. We have a scholar in residence called Come Together coming up in April, and we have an auction tied to that, an annual silent auction. We are collecting items for that. So if you have a business, know of a business, have a cool something you'd like to donate, please see me. Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. We close with Adon Olam on page 211. Oh, wait a minute. I think we're supposed to do, yeah. I was looking at Vishamru and all that first. Okay, page 211.
Adon Olam Asher Malah B'Terem Kol Yitzir Nira Leit Nasa Lahesakol Hazar Malech Shemon Yikra Adon Olam Ve'achar Yiklo Chakol Levado Yimloch Nara Adon Olam Ve'hulaya Ve'hulovet Ve'huyeh V'tifra Adon Olam Olam Hashem Allah B'Terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Le'nasa Hetzakol Hazar Malech Shemon Yikra Adon Olam Ve'hu Echad Ve'sheni Lahamshilo Lahafira Adon Olam Ve'liveshiv V'chayashli Ve'lo Ha'os V'hamira Adon Olam V'hai Goali Ve'tzor Havlin Ve'etzara Adon Olam Ve'hu Umanosli Ve'nachosi Ve'yom Ekra Adon Olam Ya'ado Akiduchim Ve'yekdishon Ve'a'ira Adon Olam Ve'ruchim Ve'itachi Adonai Ve'lo Yikra Adon Olam.
Please rise as we chant the Shamru and the Kiddush and the Motzi on page 77.
Visham 77, page 77, going back. Okay, great. Vishameru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat Lidorotam berito lamayai beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti leolam ki sheshet yamim asadonai et hashamayim ve'es haaretz uvayom hashevi'i shavad vayinafash. Al kain baruch Adonai Yom HaShabbat vayikadshehu savri chaverai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. L'chaim. Shabbat shalom, everyone. So good to be with you all.